Good evening, everyone. The March 14, 2023 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors is hereby called to order. Our first item will be the land acknowledgement, and Director Mason will give that.
Yes, thank you. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Snohomish, and Tulalip peoples. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to the ancestors of this land, on whose shoulders we stand. In Everett Public Schools, we strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive belonging for all students, teachers, staff, and community.
Thank you very much, Director Mason. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
President Lesane.
Present.
Vice President Mitchell.
Present.
Director Herman.
Present.
Director Nichols.
Present.
Director Mason.
Present.
Student Representative Colley. Student Representative Gilbertson. Present.
Thank you very much. Our first item of business will be the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Salzman, would you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Board of Directors, and the public this evening. Tonight's agenda contains the following: a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, a segment for board comments, a segment for public comments, a segment for routine business, a segment for information discussion, and a segment for upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, the following changes were made to the agenda. Item 7.01, the superintendent's report. The presentation was updated, added an item 12.01, Enrollment Outlook 2023. The presentation was corrected. And item 12.02, Special Services Program Review. The presentation was updated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salzman. Is there a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
For a second? Thank you very much, Director Mason and Director Nichols, for moving and seconding. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. The agenda for this evening has been adopted. We'll move on to section 6.0. Now, 6.0 is a very important section that we highly, highly appreciate and we would like to see. Dr. Woods?
Thank you, President Lesane, members of the school board, and everyone here. Thank you for allowing me to take this time to recognize our strategic partners, the PTSA Council and the individual PTSAs at each of our schools. I want to welcome all the PTA folks who are here, council members, principals that are here to recognize them, including those who are joining us via Zoom. Recognizing the PTA is a highlight for me. Tonight, I'll be recognizing the PTSA Council and the individual PTAs of our district. I'm going to make just a few remarks, then I'm going to introduce Principal Steve Hopkins, who will make a few remarks on behalf of the principals, and then Nicole McKnight, a member of our PTSA Council, will also have a few words to say. Then we'll do a brief gift presentation, and then we're going to ask all the PTA leads and council members to come to the front for a picture. There is no such thing as a great community without great schools. And there's no such thing as great schools without the involvement of our community. Our PTA Council and individual PTAs represent one of the most important community partnerships that exist in Everett Public Schools. The people that you see in this room behind me, as well as those on Zoom, and some who were unable to be here this evening, work tirelessly on behalf of the children in our community. They may have started out because they wanted to make a difference for their student or in their child's own school. but their impact goes well beyond their own children and their own school. They truly impact all our schools, our local community, and through advocacy, our state and nation's schools. They truly act on behalf of all of our children. The PTSA Council strategic plans supports our district's work and advocates for a system-wide approach of innovative collaboration to support student learning. The council supports the individual PTAs as they support schools and students. This year, our PTAs have done amazing work as they fully brought many in-person events into our schools. There have been like PTA movie nights that are like standing room only. It's just been such a joy to have some of those events. But they also support student learning in other very tangible ways, and they build community. They have provided grants for schools. And as I said, one of the most important things and what makes PTA different from some other parent-teacher organizations is their national and state network of advocacy on behalf of all children. So I want to thank you for all that you do. Now I'd like to introduce Principal Steve Hopkins from Jefferson Elementary School to speak from a principal's perspective to recognize the work of our PTAs.
Thank you, Dr. Woods, School Board, Dr. Saltzman. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. On behalf of my colleagues, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to our PTAs, our PTA Council for all you do to support the students of Everett Public Schools. We are so fortunate to have so many wonderful partners, and our PTAs play a critical role in supporting the mission of Everett Public Schools and collaborating with us on so many initiatives. From early learning to college and career readiness, reflections program, the shoe fund, enrichment activities, and building inclusive communities in our schools, to the advocacy for our students receiving special education services, and so much more. We just want to say our heartfelt thanks. Now, I'm fortunate to be at Jefferson Elementary, and I have to give a special shout out to the PTA at Jefferson. Like so many of our PTAs here in Everett, they are such a valued partner. In addition to the enrichment opportunities, the community events, I want to point out two specific things that they've done at Jefferson that have really enriched our community. First, each Friday, we have a core group of volunteers from our PTA that prepare weekly food backpacks for many of our families that are experiencing food insecurity. And that is really a critical support for many of our families. And our families are truly grateful. We're grateful to have our PTA support with that. And second, a really fun thing that's happened this year, our PTA brought a book vending machine to Jefferson Elementary. So we have this wonderful vending machine right in our office, and every child in the school receives tokens, and they have a chance to come down to the office and put their token in and get books. We have all the reading levels, a wide variety of genres, and it truly is a highlight for our students at Jefferson. And it's so fun to just see them come down to the office with smiles on their faces. And again, just our PTA partnering with us as we are just creating a love of reading. And this is just another way that it's happening. So we're grateful for our PTA at Jefferson. But again, on behalf of all of my colleagues, I want to say thank you to all of the PTAs that partner with Everett Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Those examples from Jefferson could be our examples, and at all of the schools and in our council and with our special education PTA, those are examples of the innovative collaboration that is happening to support our students and the mission of Everett Public Schools. At this time, I'd like to introduce Nicole McKnight from our PTSA Council to speak from that perspective.
Hi, I'm Nicole McKnight. I'm a board member at large. On behalf of Everett PTSA Council Team, I would like to thank Everett School District for the wonderful cooperation. We are overwhelmed by the district's support. A few examples include taking a cream pie on a snow day to the face to increase our membership, acknowledging our requests for sustainability issues, gracing our events with a smile on your face. We also want to thank our district liaison, Kathy Woods, for attending our long membership meetings. In all the meetings, Kathy plays an important role by sharing information about the action plans of Everett Public School District. We appreciate all of her effort. Thank you. The strength of Everett PTSA Council Team is the district they work with. Again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Nicole. Those were very kind words. This is really our opportunity to thank you for your partnership with us. So I'd like to offer each of the volunteers here this evening a small token of our appreciation for all you do. I think there's some principals in the back that can maybe help. We have tulips for the PTSA volunteers. Tulips represent spring to me, and springtime always brings a sense of hope and optimism. And you, our valued PTSA volunteers and leaders, bring hope and optimism to our school communities on behalf of each one of our students. So principals, if you can find your PTA members and pass out a tulip to each one of those, and then we're gonna ask all the PTSA council and PTSA leads from each school to come up here to the front for a picture. Again, thank you very much for all you do for us and our students. In front of the dais.
Scoot in and stay behind.
I think it's gonna be
That way, we can be over,
yeah.
and then they'll see our faces, because there's so many. But they'll see our
Thank you all
faces.
so much.
Because there's so many. It's great. It's great. Yes, sir. That's the place. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna need just the last two or last two. Sorry.
Just give it
Okay, I got you all. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. And here we go.
That's a good picture.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We shall now move to section 7.0, which is the superintendent's report. Superintendent?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public.
Okay,
For-
wait.
You ready?
Multi-step process. Sounds like music.
Let me just say, first of all, again, to the PTSA, thank you. I know they're leaving now, but publicly, I want to say we have amazing PTA leaders in this district, and you can't do this work without them. You truly can. So heartfelt thank you. It means a great deal to me because my mom was the PTA president in 1976 when I was in 5th grade. Just want to say that to everybody. So thank you, PTSA. Well, it's March Madness. I bet you didn't know that. It's March Madness coming up for NCAA, but I'd like to say a few things tonight. What an amazing season for the Everett High School girls basketball team. They competed in the WIA Girls Basketball Championship for the first time in 27 years. And the end of the season is one of the top class 3A teams in the state of Washington. The spirit of that school that took place and that student body in the community was outstanding. I want to compliment Principal Kelly Shepard, Coach Darrell McNeil, and also to Meg Adams, who the ASB leader who led great spirit with the students. And we had more students in Tacoma than the host school. So congratulations to the Everett High School. And I want to say that. This week is Education Support Professionals Week. And I'm so proud because this is the week that they get to be recognized and honored for all they do for our students, family, staff, and our schools. Congratulations. Our annual Empowered to Lead Summit was held last Wednesday. Our DEI team created an amazing program for our high school students. What they learned greatly impacted their school community, but a better sense of belonging and positive action around social justice. I'd like to congratulate Joy Odom Grant and Kailani Tibian for the work that they did with that. Thank you so much. Our Everett Public Schools Foundation 29th annual benefit event was in person this year. And if you went to the website, check out the clever that said back to the foundation movie, sharing the wonderful things that our donations provide for students and families. What an amazing night. And what a great job they did collecting donations as they reached their goal for $100,000 that goes right back to our students. Kay Fanton and your team, you are amazing. And I watched that video many times. It was the best I've ever seen. And thank you. And thank you for everybody that came out that evening. It really means a lot for our community. Multicultural nights are happening across our district, sharing music, food, clothing, art, and more. What a wonderfully diverse school population we have, and it's happening in every one of our schools. Every one of our schools. So salutes to that. I hope everybody gets to attend a multicultural night. We had a great robotics competition last week, and with all three high schools competing with 33 other teams. Cascade and Everett advanced in their competition, and Jackson's Jack in the Bot won the Event of Excellence in Engineering Award. Congratulations. And to all those robotic coaches for the hours they put in for our students. Thank you, thank you, thank you. STEAM Family Night at Silver Firs Elementary was a huge hit, along with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, how it plays an essential role for a fully rounded education. Families explore data collection, circuits, coding, biology, engineering, and more. And we love seeing families explore that and learning together. Thank you, Anthony Anderson, for helping that make that happen, and to our board for supporting this. Do you realize now that kindergarten enrollment is now open for the 2023-24 school year? Oh my gosh. Families may go to the district website or visit their school's website right now. Each school have extended hours on March 12th, March 13th, and today for their work to get their students registered. Congratulations to Director Arnold for her great work. March 22nd, for all 11th grade students, the SAT. There's no charge to take the SAT, and there are many benefits by taking it. So there will be a 4-hour late start for all other high school students that day. So we encourage those that are taking the SAT, get recharged and get refreshed and come take the SAT. I want to thank everybody for this evening and wish everybody a beautiful evening and a wonderful spring season ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. Appreciate this. Well, we'll now move to section 8.0, which is board comments. And the purpose of this section of the agenda is for directors and student reps to have the opportunity to share what they have encountered in the past week or so in the district as it pertains to schools. And so we will start off. Who would like?
May I start? Because I'm going to be quick.
Yes, please
That
do.
way I give time to others. And it's actually been a month since we've been here. So I just really quickly, thank you to the PTSA, because I, like many people, started my leadership in the district at the PTSA at Penny Creek, then Gateway, then Jackson, work on the foundation than the school board. So I just really want to thank them and let them all know, even though they've left, that the leadership doesn't stop with the PTSA. There are opportunities and other places to serve the district. Then I will let my other board members who joined me in Olympia speak to the visit we did for Legislative Day down there. I was just down there for one day to learn about what the priorities are, and it was really enjoyable to learn, but I'll let them speak to that. And then I had the pleasure of visiting Emerson Elementary School. Really wanted to look at the math programs, was able to see the big boards in action, and really interesting to see how the teachers engage using the technology with the kids, and was able to see a lot of technology that really does allow for little voices to be heard in the classroom, as well as how the kids can engage with it in really a creative way, and how technology is really taking a place in schools as well as in their learning. And it was just really enjoyable to see those kids learning. A lot of fun. So that was it, and I'll let others speak more.
Are we going down the line?
Go right on down the line, Director Herman.
I'll
Thank
go
you.
next. I'll try and make it as brief as I can. There's been actually so much, as you were saying, going on. So some of the events were already mentioned. The Back to the Foundation was fantastic from the EPS Foundation. What a great event, great film. Also, a thank you to the athletic department for the Nick of Time event on March 1st at Jackson High School, which did heart screenings. Over 100 volunteers helped with that. They were able to screen 288 students, and 8 students were identified for follow-up. So also all of those students that went through received training on CPR and AEDs. So a fantastic event, well organized, well executed. The multicultural nights, again, there's a whole season now of multicultural nights happening. So I was able to attend Jackson's and Jefferson Elementaries. And what was neat at Jefferson was they were doing some sign language. So that was one of the presentations. So I also want to say, sort of transitioning on, thank you to the parents and staff who have reached out with questions or concerns following last meeting's presentation on the budget reduction plan, and to emphasize that as a school board, we are still continuing to advocate in Olympia in providing adequate funding for what we feel is basic education. And so while we don't know the exact numbers yet, I just want to again thank the district leadership for having this plan in place going forward for what we know at this time. And that segues into legislative now and the WASDA conference. And we're going to be really interested to hear Student Representative Gilbertson's take on this. I thought it was a fantastic couple of days. Gave us the opportunity to hear from our colleagues at WASDA, Superintendent Rakedahl. And I was really impressed with how they included student voices in both the conference and highlighted the students on the day at the Hill. We had a great guest speaker, Shankar Vedantam, and actually some of his messages seemed parallel to me to Mark Brackett, what we heard in the fall. And it was how to effectively work with legislators, both day on the Hill and onward. So it was time well spent. We knew going into day on the Hill that those meetings were going to be super quick. So I want to thank Darlene Vonnegut for really arranging so that we could use that time very effectively that day. It was helpful. We shared our priorities, emphasizing really the need to fully fund special education. We tried to hammer that home, but it was time well spent. And so just again, we're gonna keep pushing, right? For now, a legislative update with my legislative rep hat on. We are now in week 10 of the legislative session. And last week, as some of you know, we're aware that it was the House of Origin cutoff date. And so that's a big cutoff date where bills are required to make it out of their House of Origin. So it needs to make it out of the House and now be considered by the Senate. Senate bills need to have made it out of the Senate and are now being considered by the House. So basically what that did for us at WASDA is, if you remember, I reported out that WASDA was tracking approximately 40 bills at the very beginning of the session that had expanded up to about 150, and now it's back down to about 60. So a number of them were essentially cut off and no longer moving forward. But as we know, that doesn't mean that they're not going to come up again another year. So I guess at this point, I'd just say that if there are topics that you would like us to be proactive on, even if it has sort of stopped for this session, let's talk and let's sort of continue that on. Our advocacy doesn't stop even at the end of session. Next big cutoff is March 29th, which is in about 2 weeks. And that means that those bills have to make it out of the opposite chamber for them to keep going. So to follow up, a few bills that are still in play that we've been talking about. From the Senate side that passed the Senate are now in the House, Senate Bill 5048, eliminating college and the high school fees. Senate Bill 1550, transition to kindergarten bill that is of special interest to us here in Everett. Because we have a robust TK program, we're going to continue to track this and hopefully weigh in on discussions going forward as that's being considered. Senate Bill 5174, providing adequate and predictable student transportation. We had talked about this one before. This one has been amended down to basically creating a safety net for districts to use to get expenses reimbursed. So it's a safety net situation that they're sort of continuing now, the current version of the bill. Senate Bill 5257, this is the one requiring elementary school children to receive 30 minutes of recess on a regular school day. This has already moved over to the House Rules Committee and continues to move forward. Senate Bill 5243, creating universal online high school and beyond plan platform for statewide for all schools to use. So that's still in play, and that was going to get a hearing today at 4 o'clock. The ones that have passed the House and are now over in the Senate, House Bill 1658, authorizing public high school students to earn elective credit for paid work experience. This passed out of the House with a vote of 93-4, so it has a lot of support. House Bill 1238, providing free school meals for all, which we all had interest in. This was another one that was scaled back from its original version, but would increase the district's capacity to provide free meals. So it's considered a step in the right direction. And the step in the right direction is sort of one of those phrases that we're hearing more and more in WASDA these last couple of weeks. Step in the right direction, progress, not perfection. This is sort of the point of the process where we're trying to continue to move forward, although as we said, there's been a lot of amendments and a lot of scale back of bills from their original form. And again, the next cutoff is March 28th. And the big one, of course, is special education, Senate Bill 5311. That one was getting a hearing today, and that is top of really our legislative priorities. We've been trying to emphasize our shortfall, that last year our shortfall as a district was 9 million. We're anticipating the shortfall this year of 11 million, and really just trying to emphasize that is one of our district's highest needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Director Herman. Director Nichols.
I just briefly got to go to Emerson's Spring Fest last week for the dual language program, and it was great to see all the families there, including mine, and watching my kindergartner interact with folks who were, even though he wasn't necessarily speaking Spanish back, he was understanding and was responding, and that was great. I look forward to watching that program continue. And the last thing I want to do is call attention to our consent agenda tonight that has the school calendar for next year on it, and just make the public explicitly aware that we're approving basically the same calendar that we had this last year, and we're going to continue working on adjusting the calendar so that folks have a little bit more time to work with that adjustment.
Director Mason.
Thank you. First, I'd like to just say a thank you to Director Herman for the great updates on the legislative front. We really appreciate that. It's nice to stay in the loop, and it's hard to keep up on it all. So I appreciate, although it may not be super abbreviated, I do love hearing about it. It has been 5 weeks since our last regular meeting, and just so everyone knows, it has not been quiet around here at all. I think we all know that. We've had 6 special meetings since that time. So I feel like we're kind of rolling into spring here when things get a little bit busier. As I looked through sort of the items that I was able to participate in since our last meeting, it's just filled with community partnership. So beginning tonight with our PTSA council and our individual school PTAs, they actually, they put on one of the events that I was able to attend, the STEAM night at Silver Firs, which was just incredible. The kids, actually what was really funny is how much fun the parents were having. They were all like kind of not shoving their kids out of the way, but they were really engaged. And so I think that's just so positive when you can learn alongside and have fun alongside your children. And the variety of activities was just incredible. They got some great partners there. And then, of course, the Everett Public Schools Foundation, that's already been mentioned. I won't go over that again. And then the other one is myself, along with a couple other individuals, Dr. Bowden, a few others, were able to attend the Shack Art Center, their annual auction as well. And they raised over $300,000. And I know that that some of that funding is specifically earmarked towards our students and programs in art there. So great organization to support. And then I did get to go to a couple of the Everett High basketball games, which were so exciting. The last one in particular, the Tacoma Dome, was just such a nail biter. And I mean, Dr. Salzman said it. The thing about that sports does, as we all know, is it just creates such a great sense of student belonging in our schools. And then also school spirit's a big part of it. And the more of that in our schools, the better. And then lastly, I participated in the mock interviews, one of my favorite activities, this time at Cascade High. I think it's a great opportunity for me to better understand what the aspirations of our students are. They're, of course, very varied, but then also to understand how the student perceives their ability to meet those aspirations, and whether that's lining up or there's still a little disconnect there. So really, really enjoyed that. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Director Mason. Student Rep Gilbertson.
Hi, it was really awesome to go to Olympia this about 2 weeks ago and be able to meet those legislators and be at that conference where they talked about like the hot topics being special education funding and transportation for the most part. And then it was a great opportunity for me and Representative Colley to be able to share our experiences with those legislators. I know she talked about equity funding and like how she has her AVID classes and friends that have that, and how it's been a big benefit for them, and how I got to talk about special education involving my brother being in the Everett Public School districts. So yeah, and we also got to meet the governor too while we were there, and that was pretty cool. And I sat at the table there. Also, I went to the multicultural night last week with my dad and one of my friends, and they seemed to really enjoy that, and I was really glad that I got invited. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Student Rep Gilbertson. Thank you. Well, I have a lot to talk about, and it's because we've had 5 weeks since our last meeting, and I will do my best not to reiterate some of the things that have already been brought up. But one thing at the conference, I must say that, because I truly believe that it is our responsibility to continue to advocate for each student here at Everett Public Schools, and thereby advocating for our parents and our community. Because our biggest, I guess you would say, the greatest function that we have is to ensure our kids' success and that they meet their potential. So that is one of the things that I truly enjoy doing. And also seeing our student reps enjoy themselves and get the opportunity to speak on their colleagues, your peers' behalf, because they don't want to listen to us. They want to hear it from you. And so they did an outstanding job, and I truly appreciate what they did do. I also had the opportunity to read at Silver Lake in person instead of on the Zoom call. I enjoy going over there. I usually like to go over at family night, but this time I had the opportunity to read to kindergartners, and it's really important. You know, they really enjoy hearing about that, but you have to make sure you have a book that the kindergartners can engage in. So guess what? I took a book over on octopus. And you can imagine 8 legs and how do octopus swim? and actually seeing the kids use their arms back and forth and say, they swim like this. But it was really funny. It was really funny to be in person and to be able to do that. I truly enjoy that. I also had the opportunity to attend the Empower to Lead Summit. What an opportunity. All of our high school students attended. Well, not all of them, but a representative from each one of our schools attended. And it was done here. They had an opportunity to move about the building and go into different rooms and hear motivational speakers. We can't do that enough. That needs to be done more often. You know, to give them something that they can relate to and people they can relate to and hear it from. And if you ever have the opportunity again to do that, always start with the word. What's the word? Word. I also had the opportunity to attend the Jackson High School Multicultural Night. The flag processional was impressive. Over 50 flags from different countries being carried by students that were born in those countries and that are now living here in Washington State and attending Jackson High School. How impressive is that? I also had the opportunity to practice Chinese calligraphy, taste food from all over in different areas, and to see a fashion show and even a Punjab folk dancing, which is really kind of impressive. If you haven't had the opportunity to attend our multicultural nights here in the districts, do so. They're very informative. You get to meet outstanding parents that are truly engaging their kids into their own culture. That's an important part. I would also like to say that I had the opportunity to attend the State of the City of Everett address by Mayor Franklin. And I would like to say that she is a true partner with Everett Public Schools. She mentioned, and I'll go down the list, because she started off with the Youth Advisory Council. This is at the beginning of her speech, so you know she places a lot of importance on that, on children, on early learning. She talked about early learning, the new childcare at the Bezos Academy, and I had the opportunity to sit at a table with 3 of those representatives, and Ann Arnold, I have their card to pass on to you. Or she even talked about Everett Public Schools dual language and how it's going to bring in more people into the area who want that for their children. She mentioned how the internship program is also allowing kids to relate to businesses here in Everett so they can see how they can transition from high school or college into a business right here at home. She even talked about higher education being here in Everett. I mean, this was at the top of her discussion. Higher education with WSU Everett and Everett Community College. And she especially talked about the GOLD program at the Carl Gibson Center and how those children are still able to support the community and still grow and learn. So that's impressive. When our mayor starts off with talking about how education and specifically programs here in Everett Public Schools are benefiting not just our students, but our community, it's impressive. Just yesterday, I attended the Special Education PTSA, and I would like to pass on the word that the 3rd annual Community Run, Walk, and Roll is scheduled for this Sunday, March 19th from 10 to 2 at the Memorial Stadium. Please support this. You don't have to come out and run. You could do a virtual run if you can't make it. You can still participate. And they're going to have mascots from all high schools there. So bring your kids and come on out. They'll have food trucks, music, special guest appearances. It should be a time of a lifetime. One last thing that I heard today, I'm not quite sure if this is something that's true. There's a birthday boy in the building. Is there a birthday boy in the building, Dr. Salzman?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. People are actually having birthdays at our age, right? I would like to say happy birthday, Dr. Salzman.
Thank you so much.
And we really appreciate that, don't we all? Yeah. So, there are no more comments to be made. We shall move on to section 9.0, which is our public comments section. The audience will have an opportunity to speak. We specifically set aside this time during our regular meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and we want to hear and understand the perspective you bring to the table. We have no one on Zoom as yet, but we do have one person in the district, and I'd like to call that person front and center, Mr. Paul Gallivan. And he is one of our representatives of our unions, and I had the opportunity to meet him over at Evergreen. So welcome, please. There will be 3 blips on your podium. The first blip will indicate that you have 3 minutes and you're still green. The yellow blip will come on and let you know that you're getting close to the end, and the red blip will signify that your time is up. You may begin when you wish.
Well, thank you very much. To the board, thank you all for your volunteerism and your dedication to the district for taking part in the role that you do. To our student representative and your volunteerism, it's greatly appreciated to see you here tonight as well. Happy birthday to the superintendent. Let me get back to business. My name is Paul Gallivan, and currently I'm here with representing as a business agent for the maintenance group that works here to keep your buildings up into good condition. There's a lot of different ways that I kind of want to give you this information, but I'm going to go to feeding you with understanding the data. Understanding the data for maintenance requires a lot of investigation. It requires more than one line. There's a lot of different financial impacts when it comes to maintaining our buildings. And currently, I'm just going to go into something that is going to affect all of us here tonight, which would be our HVAC system. With the room as full as it was, no one of us would simply walk through the night without noticing that our HVAC was not properly working. The room would have gotten heated, sweaty, it would still be miserable, the doors would be open, and everybody would be looking for the escape. Now, if that's a problem, what we do is we submit a ticket. We create a ticket, virtually send it in, and have our maintenance team get here as soon as they can. Well, they had 300 2 years ago, in the 300s, 600s, and then they went from the 300s to the 600s rather quickly. But with the current state of the maintenance team, we went from the 600s to the 900s. So this means that all these tickets are out there floating, and they have to prioritize. They get to what they can with the manpower that they have. Now we've got a financial crisis that hit us, and we had to make some changes, and the current plan has the understaffing. So this is 3 positions that are currently not staffed and they hadn't gone out to fill. Currently not going to fill them. So we went from the 300s to the 600s. We're now at the 900s, and we've got lewd painting that shows up on the random in front of an elementary school that needs to get addressed, right? So a ticket doesn't necessarily get submitted. Hey, get over here right now. And this adds our ticket level because they're going to miss a couple of tickets that day. My clarity to you is to please look at the extra lines. Understand that maintenance is going to have to happen. And if our maintenance team can't do it at half the price, we'll spend twice as much to get a contractor to take care of that. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gallivan. We shall now move to section 10.0, and that is our consent agenda. Dr. Salzman, would you provide an introduction to our consent agenda?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Board of Directors, and to the public this evening. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts, grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received and answered 2 questions regarding vouchers. The consent agenda is presented as published for board approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. A motion to adopt the consent agenda is in order.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Nichols and seconded by Director Herman to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda, place it in the new business section of this agenda to be read? Hearing no request, we'll now proceed to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved. Thank you very much. We'll move to section 11.0, which is strategic progress monitoring. There are no strategic progress monitoring reports scheduled for this meeting. We'll now move to section 12.0, which is our information and discussion section. There are 3 items scheduled for this evening. We'll start with enrollment outlook, and I see Mr. Gunn is at the podium. Mr. Gunn, you're up.
Just want to make sure I did this right. So you want to go to the house on the share. Thank you. There you go. Thanks. All right. Good evening. So I'm presenting to you an annual report of enrollment projections that we update every year about this time. Our objective and our overview of this is to help you understand how our October 1, 2022 enrollment compares to other local school districts, how our projections are developed and how we use them, and then also to look at our projections for 1 year out, 6 years out, and 10 years out. Just kind of a reminder of how we, what the implications of our enrollments are, our projections. Enrollment drives over 60% of our total general fund revenues and directly affects staffing levels. In facilities, we use our longer range enrollment projections to do planning around capital bonds and levies. We look at boundary revisions, and on occasion, we bring some to you for revisions. Also, we look at how we utilize space in our schools and where we might need portable classrooms, where we might need to acquire property for future schools or support facilities. And then also, we use enrollment projections to develop and update every 2 years our capital facilities plan, which helps to set school impact and mitigation fees that we collect from new housing developments. We also use enrollment projections to determine how to allocate technology, especially as we plan how many computers and devices we'll need over time for our students and staff. And then also where might be the best locations to place programs in our schools especially, and then also whether we should be allowing students to transfer into schools. So all of those things are implications of enrollment projections. Excuse me. Here is a chart that we see every year. We just add 1 more year onto it. And certainly what you see over the last 3 years or so is the implications of COVID.
looking back in time in the 1969 and early 70s, in this area right here, that was the Boeing slowdown where it laid off about 60% of its workers in our area. And then also, if you look in the 2009, 10, 11 timeframe, you'll see kind of a slowing of our enrollment related to the subprime mortgage crisis that occurred during that time and really slowed construction down. So now really what I'm doing is for the next 4 or 5 slides is reviewing information in a report that Les Kendrick did for us. So this chart here shows a percentage change in enrollment by school district of our neighbors around the area. Everett is shown in the rectangular figure here, and you'll see that we're showing a 0.3% drop in enrollment. You can see what the other districts are looking like. Darrington has gone up. Index has gone down quite a bit. I'm going to come back to that on the next slide and explain that that's actually not quite as big a deal as it might sound for index anyway. Monroe also came down. So I'm going to have you focus on index, Monroe, and Everett for the next slide, which is the actual number of students that have changed. Index, that 14% reduction was actually 3 students. So it just tells you that the Jones family moved out of this district or something like that. 3 student drop. Monroe, though, you do actually see a significant drop of 295 students. And then Everett, a drop of 55. You'll see Edmonds had the largest, I'm sorry, no, it didn't. Monroe had the largest and Edmonds the second largest drop. So this chart here now looks at 4 Puget Sound counties. And you can see a similar pattern over the last 8 or 9 years, fairly steady growth until we hit 2019 for sure. And that was a big drop in all 4 counties. And then the next year, there was a mixed result. Some of us increased a little bit in 2020 and some decreased still. And then now we're kind of starting to head back into the positive. Although Snohomish is still down, Snohomish County, and Kitsap is down still. Kitsap is a smaller county in terms of population growth. So the 2 biggest counties, King and Pierce, are growing now. So I'll review briefly the 3 methods that we use on occasion, different ones for different things. I'll go through them. The first one is produced by Les Kendrick. He's the owner of a company called Educational Data Solutions. What he does is use the historical trends that had developed over time. How many students from one grade level will attend school in our district at the next grade level? So it's a cohort projection method. And then he adjusts that based on local housing market trends and economic indicators. He also one of the hardest things to predict from a mathematical standpoint is what your kindergarten enrollment is going to be because you don't have a previous grade level to look at to see how many students will roll up to the next grade. So what he does is look at birth rates 5 years prior to that. And so he takes historical trends, adjusts them based on housing and economics, and then also looks at birth rates for kindergarten 5 years later. OSPI starts with the historical trends, and that's about it. They predict kindergarten enrollment based on the prior year's kindergarten enrollment, which is truly just a way to develop a mathematical formula to come up with that. Because certainly the size of a kindergarten class is not going to determine the next year what the size of the kindergarten class is, but they've developed a formula that relates those two. So I'm just saying that we have over time found that Les Kendrick's projections are more accurate than OSPI. Certainly there are occasions when OSPI does get it more accurate. And I think last year was one instance of that. And then the population-based forecast is really where we take the population forecast produced by the state, the OFM, and then also they provide it to the county and the cities and counties break it down by school district. So we actually know what the state's projections for population are for our school district. And then we've developed a formula that relates student enrollment to overall population. And that's the only way that we can predict beyond 10 years what our enrollments will be like over time. So Les Kendrick does a 1-year projection out for 10 years. OSPI does projections out 6 years. The population-based forecast goes out, I think, sometimes 20, 30 years, depending on how far out the state predicts population forecasts. All right, so here's how we use these. Les Kendrick's projections are the ones that we found to be most accurate. And I've done this same kind of presentation for many years. And it used to be that invariably the medium range projections were more accurate than the low range projections and more accurate than OSPI's. And I'm going to qualify that a little bit and say here in a slide or two, I'm going to show you that in the last 2 or 3 years since COVID took its toll, the low range projections have been more accurate than the medium range. So with that in mind, I will say that the low range projections are typically where we start when we put together our enrollment projections 1 year out to use for budgeting and staffing. It's a fairly conservative approach, and it tends to land somewhere between the medium and the low, but closer to the low range projection. And that's, again, for budgeting and staffing. We don't want to overestimate our revenues and overestimate our staffing needs, so we tend to be fairly conservative. For our facilities projections, we use the medium range projection because we have to provide, well, we use that primarily 1 year out for portables. So we want to make sure that the next year that we have enough portable classrooms for the students that will show up in our schools. When you go out 5, 10 or more years, then we have to get really careful about how we use that. And what we found, of course, with COVID is that things can happen beyond your control that can mess up even the best plans. So OSPI, again, is a similar projection, at least the way it starts, to Les Kendrick's. It's just they're not adjusting based on economics or housing or birth rates. Nevertheless, they do provide another way to look at the projections, and we'll see that here graphically in a minute. And then population-based forecasts, like I said, are what we use when we are looking out longer than 10 years out. Okay, so this is a graphic description of elementary school enrollments that go out 10 years. As I said, Kendrick goes out 10 years, OSPI goes out 6. And you'll see that Les Kendrick shows a high, medium, and low range projection. OSPI usually lands somewhere between our medium and low range, and that's true for the next 2 or 3 years. And then after that, because they aren't adjusting based on the trends that we're seeing around birth rates or housing trends or economics, they're continuing to predict a downward trend that really we can't even, if they did have it go out 10 years, we wouldn't be able to show it to you on this chart because it would be so far down. I also show on this chart in the dashed line, the permanent building capacity. And then as you can see, it starts out 8,585, and then it jumps up by 10 classrooms in 2026, and then another 4 in 2028. And I'm sure that you've figured out how that can happen with the 2022 capital levy classrooms. But I did want to illustrate that even with those classrooms at the elementary level, our enrollments are well above our capacities, our permanent building capacities. And the way that we can handle those students is by portable classrooms. We have 93 portable classrooms at the elementary level, accommodating those students that are in our schools above and beyond our permanent building capacities. This is the same chart for middle school. One thing you'll notice is that OSPI's projection doesn't go down off the chart. It stays fairly consistent with our low range projection. But also the capacity at the middle school level is actually above our enrollments. So that's showing that we do have capacity, although certainly there are some schools in the South End in particular that are over capacity. We have currently 30 portables at our middle schools. So again, that's how we accommodate those students that are showing up in our schools where we don't have space in the permanent buildings. And then finally, here are the high school enrollments, low, medium, and high by Les Kendrick, and then OSPI's. Once again, our permanent building capacity is higher than our enrollments, and that capacity really exists at Everett High School, not at Jackson High School. At Jackson High, we're quite a bit over capacity still. And by the way, you'll be hearing more about that in 2 weeks at a board meeting. I'll give you a presentation on a proposed adjustment in the elementary school boundaries between two elementaries. And then at the completion of that, I will share some updated information with you about the high school boundary adjustments you made about 4 years ago. So I'll share that with you at the next meeting. So at the high school level, we have 17 portables. And I think all but 2 of those are at Jackson High School. The other 2 are at Cascade. So here it is district-wide. I sent a Friday report item to you a couple of weeks ago indicating that at this time, our permanent building capacity nearly matches our enrollment if you look at it on a district-wide basis. And what I was trying to indicate at that time is that from a purely facility standpoint, it's nearly an ideal position to be in, where you have your facilities, permanent facilities used at nearly 100% capacity. That's actually a very nice position to be in from a facility standpoint. It makes it hard from a instructional standpoint because the kids never show up in an even pattern. They show up in different locations, and we have to accommodate that. All right, so now I'm gonna, in the next, I think 3 slides, I'm gonna show you the tabular form of that same information. So this shows 1-year enrollment projections. I'm showing elementary, middle, and high in the rows, in the columns, Kendrick low range and Kendrick medium range, and then OSPI numbers. So I'm just going to point out a couple of bits of information here. If you look on the 1-year change in Les Kendrick's low range projection, he's predicting a decline of 234 students. And the medium range projection indicate a decline of about 23. OSPI, as we saw on the chart for elementary school, is roughly midway between our medium and low. So OSPI is predicting a decline of 125. This next chart here is 6-year enrollment projections, and I'll just go through these briefly because the thing that we pay attention to most in terms of the most immediate impact are the 1-year projections. But over 6 years, the low range projection from Les Kendrick show 321 student decline. The medium range projections show an increase of 729. And then OSPI continues, like you saw on the chart, it continues to go down even off the chart, decline of over 1,000 students. And then the 10-year projection, Kendrick's low range projection shows in 10 years, we're about even. So it starts down, but then it goes back up. The medium range projections show an increase of almost 1,500 students. An elementary school, just to give you an idea, is 500 to 600 students. So that's, even though these aren't all elementary school, it's about the size of three elementaries. OSPI does not produce projections that go out over 10 years. So at this point, I wanted to just mention that if you look at where we were just prior to COVID in 2019 in the fall, and using the three projections, the low, mid, and high from Les Kendrick, I just wanted to mention with the low range projection, it'll take us 10 years to be back where we started prior to COVID. If you look at the medium range projection, it'll be, we'll catch up by about 2028. So that's about 5 years out. And if you use the high range projection, we'll catch up in 2026. It's about 3 years out. Now I'm going to briefly touch on accuracy. I'm listing the low range and the medium range projection because I think I mentioned how this was looking. Prior to 2019, the yellow highlighted numbers in the medium range projections, it would say that shows that those were more accurate over time. The low range projections become more accurate beginning with 2019. And what you actually see in the year 2019, both projections are identical in terms of accuracy, even though one was 0.5% under projection, the other one's 0.5% over the projection. In numerical, context, they were the same level of accuracy. So what it shows is that the low range projections, they're basically, until we get out of this slump that COVID has kind of produced, the low range is probably a little bit better indication of a 1 year projection than the mid-range projections. That's what we've taken away from this slide. Okay, now I'm going to share just real briefly some information on 4 housing developments in our north end. It's really going to be an illustration of how enrollment, especially multifamily housing in the north end of our district is coming back. We don't have very many single family homes being built right now or in the development pipeline, but we do have a lot of multifamily units. So I'm going to share some of that information with you. Madrona Square is, I think was also known as Baker Heights Legacy, and it's the multi-story building in the Baker Heights neighborhood just south of Hawthorne Elementary School in the Delta neighborhood of Everett. It has 5 phases of 1,500 units to be completed by 2031. 1 and 2 bedroom affordable and market rate rentals. Phase 1 has 105 units and it's nearing completion right now. We actually will have an ECAP program in the main level of that facility as well that we will be operating. There are 67 units reserved for families with Everett Public Schools students. So that's that one. The riverfront is the development that you'll see if you are on the second floor here looking to the east, or if you're on the freeway driving by, you'll see this big white building that's been covered with plastic or something. That is phase 1 of a 6-phase development. And that will generate by this coming fall 332 units, generating 35 students, which isn't very many, indicating that it's more of a kind of an affluent, lower bedroom count units. And it's also a mixed use development. So it's going to have some commercial properties as well. Four Corners is a different situation. It's on the old Kmart site out just right across the street to the south of Evergreen Middle School. 430 units to be completed starting this fall will be phase 1. The last phase will be completed in, we think, about August. But historically, this project has been accelerating the schedule that they've been telling us. So right now, we fully expect that these students are basically going to be showing up this coming school year. So in other words, this summer, we have to move any portables wherever they're going to be needed to accommodate those students. This project has quite a few 4 and 5 bedroom units. And by the way, I'm kind of giving you a preview of the information I'm going to give you in 2 weeks, because this Four Corners is the subject, is the primary driver of the boundary change that we're proposing in 2 weeks. So I do happen to know, but there's a large number of 4 and 5 bedroom units in this development that really bring up the student count coming from that development. So 400 students anticipated, 200 elementary, 100 middle, 100 high school. And the high school and middle schools, you'll see on the map next time I come before you. Evergreen Middle School is right next door, Cascades right across the street from this. And those schools can handle the secondary students fairly easily. There's space there, but there's not space at the elementary school. So that one we'll cover in, like I said, in 2 weeks. Grayson Square is the old skate deck site on Bethel Everett Highway on the west side of it, just I think north of Winco. 88 townhomes, varying completion times over the next year, 2 and 3 bedroom units, approximately 30 students anticipated. So those are some examples of multifamily developments in the central or northern sections of the district. And some of those, as we talked about, will be occurring in phases over the next 10 years or so. All right, so the next steps, October to January is actually already happened. So I just wanted to kind of give you a review that from October to January, we develop these projections, finalize them, and start using them. From February to August is where we use them to make decisions about budget development, staffing levels, and portable locations, transfer requests, that kind of thing. And then in September, we always want to remind you that in September, when we actually see the students, count them, then we do make adjustments to staffing to respond to the anomalies that invariably show up in our numbers. And that completes the presentation that I have for you this evening.
Thank you, Director, Student Rep. There is an opportunity for questions if you have any questions. Director Mason needs to start.
I had just had a quick question about portables, actually two, but what is the declining enrollment doing to our portable inventory? I know we probably have some at schools that maybe we aren't using, and it's not like you sell them, an opportunity to move them or
That's right.
retire old ones?
Yes.
All of the above.
We're planning, there are at least 2 I know that we're going to be removing, I believe this coming summer. We're going to be locking them up because they're really old. And this is an opportunity for us to move some portables to locations where they're needed, away from where they're not needed. What it really does, it allows us to do that without having to purchase new portables. And that's a big plus. So that's one of the things that COVID helped us do, because prior to COVID, we were anticipating growth at all grade levels in all regions of the district, meaning that we would have to be very likely buying new portables. And COVID has given us some breathing room.
I recall at some point we've seen a chart that had student enrollment at each school and then permanent building capacity and then the number of portables at each school. I would really enjoy seeing an updated version of that with these declined numbers, if that's an opportunity, maybe at the next meeting.
Certainly. Were you thinking of the high school?
At all schools.
At all schools.
Just their enrollment versus their permanent school capacity, and then how many portables.
We certainly
are on
have that
campus.
information.
Yeah,
sure.
We've seen it before, but
Yeah.
it'd be fun. It'd be good to see an updated version. So fun. I love
I think
facilities.
it's fun too.
And then I just had another quick question. Do we know which enrollment numbers, the low or the medium or some combination, that we're using for budgeting purposes?
We do, and that is one of those questions I think I can answer.
I see help right next to you, if not.
Well, you know what? I've been working on this presentation and then the one for 2 weeks from tonight. I certainly do. I can tell you that it's in between the Les Kendrick's low and medium numbers. So I'm
Okay.
It actually aligns with the OSPI number. We're projecting about 125 lower
Okay,
than
right
the
there.
budget.
Thank you. I was going to say, I think it's about, it's only about 4 off. It's like 129 is the 1-year change that they're predicting, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Mitchell?
Yeah, I just have one comment because it's just kind of funny that, not funny, but I'm looking forward to the presentation in 2 weeks because as I talk to the young people in my neighborhood and that got dislocated or relocated to Cascade, it is just really nice that 4 years later, if I ask a middle schooler, where are you going to high school? They just go, oh, Cascade.
Yeah.
And there isn't, so I look forward to, especially if there is any kind of angst still out there, I look forward to hearing that. But when we were going to the basketball games at Jackson and looking for parking, my husband was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of new portables. I said, yes, there are. And he goes, I thought you said at one point they're going to be on the tennis courts. I'm like, yes, that's why kids are at Cascade. And so it was, I mean, you can visibly see the change in portables there from the years.
Yeah.
But it is, so I look forward to the next presentation, really to see
And
that.
we'll cover all that.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I look
yes.
forward to it. So thank you for that.
Director Herman?
Yeah, also, thank you for all this information. This is really helpful to get the big picture, where the predictions are and the factors that go into all of these numbers, because it drives so much for us. In 2 weeks, so I'm looking forward to that. Also, when we do look at the enrollments at the schools, I would also be curious about our additional programs, our choice programs or ECAP, and just because I know that can sometimes be a factor in maybe future dual language program where that would be. And so just keeping that, having that be a point of thought. And then also just for the four corners is obviously huge, and we'll talk about that. So those 400 students, some of them are maybe coming from just moving through internal in our district, possibly?
We're expecting it to be the case,
Yeah.
yes. And of course, the units that they move from, you would assume would become vacant.
Yeah.
It is possible that some of those students could be kids in transition students,
Right.
students as well. So I expect that we'll see quite a variety of
Yeah.
students coming into this housing development.
Yeah, I was thinking about hopefully when we look at our homeless students, that some of these are families that are able to move into more permanent housing.
Yeah.
So they're already in our schools, though. So thank you.
That's very likely.
Director Nichols, do you have any questions?
Not this time, no.
I do have a couple questions, and thank you so much, Mike, for your presentation. I enjoy it every time because it gives me a perspective as to how our community is growing. You mentioned the 4 different housing developments. My question is, with the rise of apartments within the city of Everett, did we experience any type of swelling of the schools, at Everett High School or North, or even, Garfield, the schools, elementary schools in the area, because of those additional developments that went in the city?
Well, I'm trying not to oversell my presentation in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm
but
sorry.
I will cover it then.
Okay.
We will show we were already planning to show the North End elementary school enrollments and
Right.
capacities as part of the elementary school boundary shift. We were also planning to bring a high school, a status update on the changes that we did at the high school level. So I can tell you that the things that we experienced, the change from 2019 to 2023, we have kind of figured that was mostly the result of COVID and not so much increased housing. I think the housing that we're seeing, the changes in the zoning that would allow more multifamily homes in the city of Everett are things that are happening now and we're seeing into the future. The big ones that are affecting us are the ones that I presented on the screen. And those are either under construction one of them, just one phase starting to complete right now, but
Right.
they're mostly in the future. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Well, no, I was just wondering, there are a couple of big apartment buildings within downtown.
oh, yes.
Did that have any effect on our number of kids?
We could actually look by address to give you that answer. I would say that for the most part, those more expensive units with fewer bedrooms wouldn't generate very many students
Okay,
generally.
gotcha. I do understand that we look at Les Kendricks and we look at OSPI, but I do know that the county is considering increased opportunities for development near transit centers.
Yep.
And my question is, what type of effect would we foresee? I mean, with Everett Station or, the Boeing Freeway right there at, we have Four Corners, but further south maybe. What could we expect to see from the county's additional focus on, more density at transit centers?
Well, I think you've pretty much hit on it. Where you have transit stops, light rail stations, you would see development occurring. And that's exactly what Seattle and Linwood and other neighborhoods are experiencing. So I think that you would see that. And I think as the light link rail planning moves forward, right now they're looking at a 10-year timeframe for completion of the system between Linwood and the Everett train station. They don't yet have the funding for it, by the way, and they're going through the preliminary planning right now. But assuming it happens, I think you will see more increased housing densities around those transit stops. And right now, the stops that I know of that are within our school district are the train station or in the downtown Everett area, and then out by Evergreen Way near Cascade High School. Those are the two stops that I know of planned in our school district.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Sure.
Any further questions? Okay. We'll now move to our next item, which is special service program review, and I think Ms. Kelly Kelminger.
Are we gonna take a break?
We want to take a break at this point, yeah. Let's take a 10-minute break at this time. Jared's giving me.
Oh, Jackson. Okay.
We are now reconvened, and Ms. Clevenger is up.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here to talk about the Special Services update. President Lassane, Dr. Salzman, Board of Directors, really appreciate it. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to talk to you about some data. Also, Special Services love data, teachers love data, and I hope that I'm going to also be able to share and infuse some stories throughout to touch both your mind and your heart. And so I'm really excited to be here tonight. So all of us are working towards our priority student outcomes. The priority student outcome that I spend the most time working on and helping others work on is reducing our gaps in achievement among our student groups. And basically the way that we're going to do that is by offering more inclusive opportunities for all of our students. And so we're identifying and removing barriers to authentic learning and high expectations for our diverse learners. So tonight, I hope that you will leave here with the opportunity to know that our key values and beliefs, our theory of action, our demographic information, that are entering and exiting services, how does that happen? What is the process for that? And then also celebrating and our celebrations and our opportunities. The first celebration I'd like to tell you about right now is already been mentioned before with our goal program at the Volunteers of America. It's a really wonderful collaboration between the Volunteers of America, the City of Everett, and the Everett Public Schools. And this was a picture when Dr. Scott and Dr. Salzman were there, and they got an opportunity to tour the program and talk to the teachers and see the students, which was really exciting for them. But I did want to share you a little story that I hope touches your heart. There was a young man in this program that lives in Mill Creek, and one morning he missed his bus, and his mom didn't know that he missed his bus, but somehow she figured out that he wasn't waiting for the bus anymore and he wasn't in the house. So it was a little bit stressful trying to figure out where he actually was. He actually had missed the bus. And so he was kind of out in the community. People were trying to figure out where he was. His mom was going up and down the streets. We were out looking for him. About a half an hour later, he shows up at the Volunteers of America. He shows up at his classroom. Everybody's really relieved. The teacher calls the mom, says, "Oh, he's here. We're just so happy he's here." And the mom said, "Well, I'm coming right up there." And so the teacher was a little worried. She thought, "Oh my gosh, the mom's gonna be really mad or whatever." The mom came in sobbing and went up to the teacher and gave her a hug and said, "You know what? You taught him how to do that. You taught him how to take the bus. You taught him how to get on public transportation and get to where he needed to be." And it was just a really wonderful story. And it was just so amazing. The teacher was she was so worried. And then she was so happy that really what she has been doing and what we've all been doing throughout our whole time of educating this young man really has paid off, and he's kind of an impacted guy too. So it was really exciting. It's a really great story. So I want to tell you a little bit more about our students. So our facilitating the growth of our students is a paramount responsibility of our school district. And from our very littlest to our 21-year-old going out into the world, the children and students are the center of every decision we make. From our services to the pediatric critical care home, there are 2 homes here in Everett, and we serve those students in the facility, to our 8th grade honor students who might be twice exceptional, to our transition students going out into the world, the families, the community, the school district has nourished them, and these are our students. So these are our wonderful students that we support in special services. I just want to also kind of go into our key values and beliefs. So we believe that every student is a general ed student. We believe that special education is a service and not a place. We believe that we always presume competence. We believe the best way to achieve these goals is through systemic collaboration. And I hope throughout this presentation I'll be sharing with you that you will see that the people behind me and the people in front of me, we have been doing so much systemic collaboration that we really are making a big difference in the lives of not just our students with special needs, but our other students as well. And that we also believe that sustainability of any kind of systemic change is rooted in the hearts and minds of the community. It cannot land and be, it cannot land with one person, one person's vision. It needs to be a community vision of how we work and work with students. So as we move through this and we start talking a little bit more about inclusive practices, I want to tell you what our theory of action is. If we create opportunities for all students to have access to general education, standards, curriculum, and peers, then we believe that all students with disabilities will achieve growth and meet grade level proficiency standards in greater numbers. And the next slide is actually showing you a little bit about OSPI's priorities, which are very similar to ours. We actually have based our priorities and our beliefs on OSPI's priorities for outcomes with students with disabilities. So leadership, growth mindset, and retention and recruitment of teachers and staff. So I want to give you an opportunity to know a little bit about the process of how a student qualifies for special services. And I want to let you know that long before a student is referred for special education, a family, a parent, a teacher, a doctor has brought the student to a study team at a school and said, this student is really struggling with, let's say, for example, learning to read. So the student study team at the school then starts putting interventions in place for that child, and in a cycle of every 4 to 6 weeks, and takes data on, is this interventions working? And they will bring the child and the situation back to the study team, and the study team will say, yeah, this is working, let's keep doing it. So they'll start another intervention and see if that works. They also might bring the student back and say, this is like, we've had several cycles of interventions and several cycles of data taking, and the student is still really struggling. So the team then might decide to refer the child for a special education evaluation. And then the school district has 25 school days to decide whether they're going to, the school psychologist, 25 days to decide whether we're going to evaluate the student. Now, with the situation I was just talking to you about, usually they would just go right to the referral because they've already had a cycle of interventions and data. And so they would just go right to asking for parental consent to evaluate. And of course, all the way through this whole process, the parent is involved, the parent is at the meetings, the parents are involved in the whole process. So then you get parental consent, and then the school district has 35 school days then to evaluate the student and determine eligibility. If the student is eligible, then the district has 30 days to write an IEP and then start services right away. It may seem like this is a little bit of a long process, but identifying a child with a disability is a very serious responsibility. And we need to make sure that we're doing the right things, that we're evaluating the right things, and that we're actually saying this child really does have a disability. Or maybe this child is just struggling to learn something but may not have a disability, so they might not be eligible for special services. But of course, we would keep working with them all the way through to get them not be a struggling reader or something like that. But it is a very big responsibility to identify a student with a disability. So we want to make sure we're doing it right. So there are really 3 criteria that you have to meet in order to get an IEP to be served by special services. 1 is you have to have a disability or disabilities. 2, it has to adversely affect their educational performance. And 3, they need specially designed instruction to make progress. And I will talk to you a little bit more when we get into talking a little bit more about how you exit. about a 504 plan, which is it's similar to an IEP, although it doesn't involve specially designed instruction. So services that are offered on an IEP are some academic services, maybe counseling as a related service, maybe a motor, those kinds of things. So all of those items up there are things that are decided at an IEP meeting. And as they go through the IEP paperwork, they will be able to uncover the kinds of things that the child might need. They might need transportation, they might not need transportation, but all of these services are located in an IEP. So we talked about how you enter services, and now let's talk a little bit about how a way to exit services. So just to let you know that the IEP is reviewed every year. It's an annual review. The evaluation is renewed and reviewed every 3 years. So if a child has an evaluation in kindergarten, by 3rd grade, they would have a reevaluation. And so when we're considering exiting services, a team would get together and talk about the data, talk about the team, they would discuss the IEP goals, and they'd say, maybe we need to find out some more information about whether the student still qualifies for special services. And I'm going to give you an example. There might be a student that has struggled with social and maybe struggled in reading. But the little girl's doing so well in social, and the team is thinking, I'm not sure that she still qualifies. So a reevaluation would occur. And then possible outcomes of that reevaluation is that the student may still qualify in both. Or they might qualify in just the reading and be able to drop the social. Or they might exit with a 504 plan, which is the accommodations from the IEP is what's considered a 504 plan. Or they might exit without a 504 plan. And 504 are plans can be developed for students who have diagnostic disabilities, like sometimes ADHD, sometimes seizure disorder, things like that. And the student services and our department work really closely together to really help each other with the 504 and IEPs and try to make sure that students are not in more restrictive placement because of their disability. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our enrollment trends. Really stable. October 1st to October 1st, very stable, about 12.2% of our students. And these are kindergarten through 12th graders. These do not include our preschoolers. And I can give you some more information about the percentage of preschoolers. I think if with the percentage of preschoolers, it would be 13.2% in our district. So this is a very busy slide, and it talks a little bit about our service delivery models that we have here in the Everett School District. So we have an intensive service model, which are low core caseload sized, about 10 students, one teacher and 2 paraeducators, and those services are offered in a developmental preschool and developmental kindergarten, our life skills program, our Achieve program, which works with our students with self-regulation challenges, and then our transition programs. And then we have more of a more moderate service model, which is just pretty much the same as the intensive, although there are more children. They're a little higher caseload, and that's our extended resource program. Then we have a varied service model, which we would consider our resource services, and secondary schools have about 30 students and 1 teacher, and our elementary schools have between 22 and 25 and 1 teacher working. They're not all in the same space all the time. They're usually either the teacher either pushes in or pulls out a small group, so she's not working with 30 kids at the same time. And then we have itinerant service models. So that's like preschool. We have an itinerant preschool teacher that will go into the community and work in our the community preschools, or work in our ECAP classrooms with the teachers and the students. We have our vision team. We have a sign language team. We have those teams where the student just really needs one service. And so that's an itinerant service model. So enrollment in our programs or our services, students with IEPs, about half of our students are enrolled in what we would call our resource services. 22% are students that just have speech and language or a motor disability or delay. And then the rest are students in our other programs. And so I want to talk, the next slide I'm really excited about, actually. This is our, I'm sure you've heard the term LRE, which means least restrictive environment. And so ideally, we would like the most students that we have to be able to spend as much time in general education as possible. And so in our LRE1, which is where students spend 80 to 100% of the time in general education, almost half of our students who are served with IEPs spend that much time in general education. Then we have about a third of our students that spend 40 to 79% in general ed. And then we have our LRE3, which is 0 to 39%. And those are often some of those students are students that are homebound. We've had a very high increase in homebound students that since COVID, many students who are medically complex that really cannot be in a school setting. So we've developed a method of working with them. And then also we've had, and then this group also includes the students that are served through our non-public agencies, our private schools. If we've exhausted everything that we can possibly do, and then we think, wow, maybe this NPA would really help, then we work with the private school. So that was what is LRE3. It's like 0 to 39% in general ed. So now we're going to talk about inclusionary practices, which is my favorite topic. And I want to just tell you about sort of a model that we used to use, and we're not using this model anymore, but I want to explain what it is. So this model really illustrates our work with our early learning and also with our secondary resource students. So it used to be that when a 3-year-old came to us and the time at the end of the IEP when you decide placement, a student would in preschool would have two options. Either they would be in a self-contained modified class with all students with disabilities, or they would be in general ed and they would be getting walk-in services, like they might walk to the neighborhood school for speech or things like that. Their parents they wouldn't walk there by themselves, but parents would take them there. And the same with our resource students in secondary. If they qualified in reading, generally they got a modified class with all students with disabilities. And with kind of really no continuum of services. And so it used to be the thought that if we isolated students with special needs and we gave them very intense instruction, that they would somehow catch up, and that's just not true. It just doesn't. The research has shown that that's not a model that's sustainable to help students make progress. So we've created this, with the help of our communications department, we've created this new model, continuum of services, which is a way of going from our least restrictive to our most restrictive, in trying to identify where a student would benefit the most. So I'm going to give you an example of a preschool student. So preschool student, 3-year-old. So then, at the end of the IEP, the team says, where are they going to learn the most? Where are they going to make progress on the goals? Where's their environment? And so what we wanted to stretch out and explore more in Everett is let's talk about what the service models could look like. And so we would look at general education with natural and environmental supports, which, our general ed teachers are amazing at differentiating their instruction. They're amazing at creating visual models for students. They're really amazing. And so are there some students that with IEPs that could just be in general ed and get that environmental and natural supports? Sure. Maybe they need to be in general education with maybe a little bit of extra push-in support. So maybe on a scheduled basis, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a teacher would go in for 20 minutes and teach a small group in that general ed classroom and then come out and go to the next class. Or would the child do well with a general education teacher in a general education class with a co-teacher? So a general ed teacher and then a teacher that's a teacher of access, which we would call our special education teachers. Or does this student really right now need a modified class with all students with disabilities? Maybe they need a very, very, very small class. Maybe they need things paced out really slowly. There's all sorts of reasons why a team would decide about a modified course. So, and all these decisions are made through an IEP team using data to determine the level of student need. So what we're trying to do is just open up the world a little bit and try to help students have more access to general education. So I want to talk about two big initiatives that we've been working on. Both what I've mentioned before, sort of early childhood initiatives, and then I'll talk about our secondary initiatives. So our early childhood initiatives, really, we've worked really hard with Anne, who's going to also talk to you later, but really very deep systemic collaboration with early learning. And we've integrated our transitional kindergarten. So we've taken some of our students who were in our developmental preschool, and they've moved into the transitional kindergarten early, so that they started in January. And we did that last year, and we did it this year, and it's working out really nicely, just having them all together. And then we also have 2 schools that have co-taught ECAP programs. So there's a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher, and we have 4 sessions. We have 2 at Lowell, 2 at Hawthorne, and then we just got word today that we're going to open up another program in the South End. So we're really excited about that. And then we also have an inclusive Everett Ready program, which is the program where students get this experience of a half-day experience the week before school starts, learning what is kindergarten, what is school all about. And so then what happens is that our students who have IEPs are included in that. We provide support, we provide teachers, paras, those kinds of things. So they're all included in all of that, which is pretty amazing. And then our secondary initiative, we're just trying to create equity across opportunities across our district. And so this year we've been doing a pilot program for co-teaching in 4 of our secondary schools, and we'll be extending that to all of our secondary schools starting in the fall. And I did want to tell you a little bit of a story about this. So there was a teacher that told a story. Well, by the way, that's a picture of co-teaching happening in one of our high schools, and it's been a really great experience. But there was a student who is, I think, in 6th grade, and she was maybe she's in 7th grade, because she told her teacher, she's in a gen ed co-taught math class, and she said to her special ed teacher, she said, you know what, I must not have an IEP anymore, because I get to be in this class with all my friends, and we're learning all this really fun stuff. And the teacher said, oh no, honey, you still do have an IEP, but you get to be here with all your friends, and you get to learn like everybody else. And it was such a moving story, just in terms of, the student just felt like she belonged in this environment. And that is a very wonderful, it melts my heart a little bit. So you can imagine, with a systemic change that we're trying to initiate here, that there are many, many stakeholders. And I want to assure you and the public that we have been working very hard this year and last on really engaging all of our stakeholders. We've engaged our students, our general ed teachers, our special ed teachers, the counselors. I've had Dave has invited me to a number of counselor meetings where we're talking about how do you register students for co-teaching kind of opportunities. We've spent a lot of time with our school administrators, our school psychologists, and our support staff. And one of my directors and I are actually going to Evergreen Middle School on Friday to talk about how do we master schedule this co-teaching and how much staff do I have and things like that. So it's exciting to do that. I just also wanted to share with you a few other celebrations and things that have happened that are creating more inclusion in our schools, or inclusionary practices. So on the left-hand side, you'll see our communication boards. We have communication boards like this in every elementary, well, we're installing them in every elementary school, and this is a collaboration between special needs PTA and special services, and we've also had some donations, which has been really amazing. We've had some lumber donations, and our maintenance people, Mike, are putting these all up, so it's very exciting. And what that communication board is, it's actually almost identical to what a child who doesn't use their voice to communicate, they have an iPad, and it has their assistive technology on their iPad so that when they go to the playground, they can play with their friends. They can play with their gen ed friends. They can point and say, I want to play that, and then the gen ed student, takes off. I mean, it just becomes part of a normal communication process. So it's really cool. And then we also launched Special Olympics at Everett High School, and these students were participating in a skills contest. We're not quite ready for a team yet, but they're working on the skills. And then also, I don't know if you've heard about our adaptive toy drive, but it's a collaboration between CTE and our assistive technology team, where the CTE students, I don't know what you call it, like they figured out a way to create a switch for each one of the toys so that the boy on the right-hand side, he's learning cause and effect, where he presses the Big Mac or he presses the button there, and then the toy will light up, or the toy will do something that'll make the student also then want to try again, and just sort of learning some motor skills and some cause and effect. So it's been a really wonderful collaboration. And then lastly, I just want to talk to you a little bit about our opportunities and next steps. So we really want to continue our inclusionary practices across our system. We also are developing an action plan to decrease our disproportionality of our students who identify as Latinx and Hispanic. They are identified with learning disability a little bit much than we want. So we're developing with OSPI, we're going through an action plan to kind of see what the root cause analysis of that is, and then what we can do about it. And then also just collaborating with human resources to increase our recruitment and retention of our paraeducators, because that's been, a source of lots of conversations between Chad and I. And so just trying to make sure we get more folks in our schools. So I hope that I've been able to give you some information. I hope I've been able to touch your heart. I hope that you have questions for me, because and ways that we can improve and things like that. So appreciate your time. And so if you have any questions, I'm open.
Dr. Nichols.
Well, first, thank you. It's always great to learn about this stuff, because as you know, it's very complicated, and I can't always keep track of it all. So my first question for you is, how does a student, let's say you have a student coming in with a very obvious disability that's been documented since birth, how does the evaluation process differ for them coming into the program?
That's a great question. So often some students are identified at birth. And so there are organizations out in the community that work with our students who are 0 to 3 years old. And so those students would get services there. And then we actually have one of our facilitators, our wonderful facilitator, Bree Duffy, she does the transition from the Birth to Three center to our school district. So it's very complicated, and it used to be that we got the funding for it and passed through to the agencies, but now they get the funding, and then she gets a list every 90 days, and it's just like the timeline that I just showed you about how to get the process of getting an IEP. There are certain benchmarks that you have to meet, like you have to meet with the family 90 days before, you have to have an IEP in place and then placed by their 3rd birthday. So that's one of the reasons that our preschool enrollment grows dramatically over the school year, because it's once they turn 3, they come into the school district. So that's what happens. I would say that sometimes, every September at the beginning of school, there's kindergartners that come and we're called and said, could you come out and just, help us? So we go through a process, just like the iterative process that we had with the interventions, data, those kinds of things, and then get right in there and try to support the school. We often will, I've gone myself and supported kids. So we try to help get kids what they need right away without having to wait all the time with all this timelines. It's important to make sure that we have the paperwork in place, but we also try to get right in there and help the school.
And in that same kind of vein, the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan, it sounds to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the 504 is really just more like an ADA accommodation.
Exactly.
As opposed to, okay.
Yep.
And is the bar for that the same as an IEP or special services?
No, you just need to have a document that says that you have a disability. But I will say that you need to, they meet with the school and decide on what accommodations the student needs, because they might not need every accommodation that could be available, but they might need, it might be temporary. It might be, I know, Dave, there was a kid last year, I think, that broke both legs or broke both arms. And so just immediately putting in that 504 accommodations for them.
And then the last thing I'll say is I really like that communication board. Like, what a simple tool for a complex problem.
Yeah.
And that to me is really just fantastic. So
thanks to our SLPs. And it's been good.
If I may, I concur with those boards, because it's just heartwarming, especially the story about how a nonverbal kid who can still communicate can go up point and then play ball, play whatever. That's just so beautiful. One thing, when I heard you say belonging, it just really touched me, because I've said this before, but my sister was diagnosed as reading with a reading problem as a freshman, having a 4th grade reading level. And what came to mind as you were talking was she was immediately put into special ed classes and excluded, and she felt other, versus the story you just told about a student who felt a belonging. And when we look at our panorama survey, that sense of belonging is what we want for every student. And so thank you so much for sharing a different way of teaching than my sister experienced. And so I thank you for that. But one question I have, because I've heard from a few high school gen ed teachers with the burden of, they say, a burden of IEPs or 504s, 30 plus kids in a classroom, what has been told to me, 50+% IEPs or 504s, exaggeration, I don't know. Taking them is honest. And just the lack of support, having to write notes for these students, having to present for these, I've just heard a lack of support they want to teach, but all the accommodations, and they're one person, 30 kids in a class, 5 periods.
Yeah.
Is that where some of this co-teaching comes in?
Yes.
Okay.
It is where it's coming in, and trying to free up special ed teachers to actually push into those classes that are more, have more interesting group, community of kids. And so it's definitely where co-teaching is coming in. And we have we're working on our pilot right now, where the students, they're about 30% or like maybe nine kids, or 30% of kids might have IEPs, and that way it balances out the class. So yeah, so we're trying.
So how, and I guess this would be for a high school principal, or maybe the leaders, the middle school and high school teachers, that if they are feeling that burden, how do they get the support? Co-teaching is obviously a pilot, but how do they work with the leadership in their building or in the district so that, I've heard of teachers, I've known teachers that have left because of it. And so it is, they want to teach all kids. What are their supports?
Yeah, so so in each high school and each school, we identified an administrator who is especially working with us at special services. And we've been working a lot on, professional development with general ed teachers and those kinds of things. I'm trying to think of other things. Yeah.
I'll go first. I would actually just say that one of the things that Kelly opened with was talking about how all special students with special services are general education students first. And where our emphasis through academics with our general education programming is differentiated instruction is actually good for all students. And we meet students where they are. So providing structures and support within our curriculum around, hey, these are strategies that might be good for multilingual learners. These are great strategies to utilize with the math curriculum for students who might have disabilities. If you have students with executive functioning delays, or if you have students who are visual learners and not verbal processors, here are some materials or resources that you can utilize to provide them access to the general education curriculum. So that's been the emphasis through collaborative professional development, both with special services and also through just academics in the general ed curriculum, is ensuring that we can try and meet every student's needs where they're at in the least restrictive environment in general ed curricula or classrooms.
And I know, Dr. Scott, you want to say something, but I really do ask this question in that vein of inclusiveness. Yeah. So it is that support of all the teachers all the teachers support all of the students. So
absolutely.
Yeah, just so you know my context.
Part of that, when Kelly mentioned that co-teaching addresses that, it's the co-planning part of the co-teaching. So that might mean common prep periods, that might mean the collaborative planning that we support that is really intentional, that opens the doors for access, that looks at the accommodations, looks at the modifications. And it's truly some teamwork that needs to happen in the anecdote that you described, and that's how we would tackle that.
Okay, so the example I gave of a teacher that's feeling 50%, did I hear correct? If there are 30%, that's sort of the threshold that in a class that maybe there is extra support for that teacher, or is it?
Yeah, so our pilot actually had about 30% or about 9 students. So I know that there are some schools and classrooms that are more heavily impacted, and so we would try, between the academics and special services, to really go in there and help that teacher.
Yeah, no, thank you, because it is the right thing to do.
Right.
And so thank you so much.
Yeah.
Director Herman, you have a question?
Actually, not so much a question, but thank you so much for this presentation tonight. And thank you also for hosting the Special Education Advisory Committee, because I think it sort of melds the family engagement, making sure, I know you're very active with the Special Ed PTSA, so getting those family voices back and getting that feedback is really helpful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Director Mason, you have any?
No, just great presentation. I learned a great deal, so thank you.
Student Representative Gilbertson, do you have any questions? I do want to say thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I do have one question.
Yep.
You had mentioned something to the effect that at some schools, some of our schools, we're probably a stronger support because of the students that are there. How have we been as far as providing an equitable, inclusive program throughout the district? Are there areas where we need to perhaps look at so that we can provide additional support at any 1 or 2 or 3 schools?
Oh, the schools. Well, what I was thinking more of, I think our secondary schools have a lot of support, and we've spent a lot of time working with them. I think what I was talking about, like next steps, it's really looking at our elementary and trying to figure out how we can be more inclusive there, and with staffing and just trying to make sure that students have more access to general education.
So it's really primarily at the primary level.
Right now, I think that's like our next frontier.
Next frontier. Yeah. I like that. Thank you. Point
of privilege.
Yes.
I just want to say to the board and publicly, great job. And it's a paradigm shift to be inclusive education, okay? And that all kids are getting that opportunity. And as my walkthroughs, I see it at Jackson High School with Coach Johnson's class, the team teaching, the co-teaching. You see it very clearly how they collaborate together. And it's just a cultural attitude in the building as you include everybody. So to the board and to your department, to make that shift is really proud work to everybody. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next. Our next presenter is going to be Ms. Ann Arnold, who will be presenting on community partnerships that support early learning in our Everett Public Schools.
That's okay. You're fine. All right. There you go. Thanks so much. The share went off. Sorry. There it is. Thank you. Good evening, President Lassane, directors, student representative, Dr. Salzman, and the public. Thank you so much for having me here tonight to share this spotlight presentation. My name's Ann Arnold. I'm the director of P5 Instruction and Early Learning Programs, and I'm really excited to share this story with you tonight. It is about a really impactful way that community partners and Everett Public Schools came together to really make a difference for a group of students and families after a tragedy in our community. So the story starts with our ECAP program, and you've heard about us tonight. We are involved with the free preschool program that's offered to income-eligible families that have 3- and 4-year-old children. We serve 320 families in Everett at 6 of our elementary schools across the district: Cedarwood, Jackson, Hawthorne, Silver Lake, Lowell, and Madison. And last summer, one of our preschoolers who attends the Madison program drowned in a very tragic accident while on a family picnic. And this tragedy was, of course, devastating to our whole community, but more than anything to this group of teachers at the Madison ECAP classroom: Kim, Cheryl, Vicki, and Nancy. They've worked together for a long time. They've really supported these families. And ECAP isn't just an educational program, and I say just as in there are more parts to it. It also has a nutrition and food program for families, and it has wraparound services to help families set goals for themselves, increase their housing security, increase their food security. And it's really a program where the staff that serves that group comes to know them very well. They do home visits, they become very close. And in this particular family, 2 of their children had been in ECAP previously with the same group of teachers. So these teachers were really committed that they needed to do something when they came back in September so that another ECAP family, or any family for that matter, wouldn't have to go through this kind of tragic loss. And they put their heads together and started thinking about what they could possibly do to really make a difference in their community. And out of that came reaching out to several community partners, one of whom was the Family YMCA in Everett, and asking them about water safety and swim lessons, all those possible options that they might be able to tap into. The Family YMCA did come forward and say, well, we do have swim lessons for preschool kids and we could offer you a discounted rate and we could put together some kind of a program. So this group of great educators came to our larger group here at the CRC, our early learning team, and said, is there some way we can do this? Are there some grant opportunities we could apply for? Is there some way we could raise the funds and to be able to offer this to some of our students? So out of these efforts came a really amazing partnership with these 4 community partners. So the Everett Family YMCA offered these Madison ECAP families a discounted rate for swim lessons. The Puget Sound Taxpayers Accountability Account, which is commonly known as PASTA, and is actually a grant program that is provided by the taxes that are put into the light rail. You've heard about that earlier when Mike was talking about our enrollment increases. But in Snohomish County, there is a tax that's levied on taxpayers. Those dollars have been dedicated to early learning programs in our community, and they are assigned to or awarded to school districts and higher education organizations in the community. So we have a significant grant that we get from them, and we can give it to community partners. So that gave us a big part of our funding for this program. Then the Everett Public Schools Foundation stepped up and gave this group of teachers at Madison a classroom grant so that they could support a family component to this experience as well. And then finally, and I honestly don't even know how Seattle Children's Hospital got involved, but they stepped forward. This is the North Clinic, and they wanted to be involved in supporting this program as well. And I have to say, it kind of took on a life of its own, where people just said, this is something really important. We need to do this, and we need to do it really well. So here is our brochure or our flyer that is going out to all of the families at Madison. And beginning Friday, March 17th, every preschooler in ECAP in the Madison classroom, there are 40 of them, will have access to free swim lessons for 8 weeks beginning on Friday. But our preschool programs run 4 days a week. So on that 5th day, they'll have their lessons. Really amazing. Because of the additional funding we were able to put together, there'll also be a water safety ambassador training for parents and guardians that they'll have at the same time as their kids are in the pool with the instructors. And then the one I was referencing that was really an amazing surprise was the Children's Hospital is donating life jackets that will be custom sized at a May evening event for all 320 of our ECAP families, not just the 40 Madison families. So it is just really amazing to think what could happen when 4 really dedicated educators put their heads together and really tried to do something for the families in our community. So this is a partnership with the Seattle Children's Hospital. Health and Human Services in Snohomish County is the group that supports or distributes the PASTA dollars. Everett Public Schools Foundation, of course, the YMCA, and then our great school district who supports these kids in a really important way. And out of this whole process and the fact that the PASTA grant is renewed for 10 years and we're just in year 2 right now, next year this whole group is going to come together and we're going to offer these swim lessons, parent safety training, and free life jackets to all 320 ECAP families. So that will happen beginning in the fall. And we are just so grateful and so genuinely thankful for this opportunity. And I say that to the community, but I also say it to the board, because every one of you has supported early learning for as long as I've known you, even before I was here. And I really thank you sincerely for that, because we have it as a strategic initiative. It elevates this work. It draws attention to it. People know it matters in our district. And that is a huge statement, because we all know that on-time graduation starts in preschool. And when we give kids a really rich early learning experience, they arrive at kindergarten ready to learn. They meet benchmark in 3rd grade. They become readers, writers, mathematicians, and scientists. And now we can also say for these children, they can live and play in our community in a really safe way. So thank you sincerely very much for all the support you give us.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. It's fantastic. And it is true, when you can put all community members together with educators. Oh, so much good things come out of it. It really does. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to section 13.0, which is unfinished business. And I see there are no unfinished business scheduled for this meeting. We'll go to section 14.0, which is new business. And there are no new business items scheduled for this meeting. We'll move to section 15.0, which is our upcoming agenda items. Dr. Salzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public. At the March 18th special meeting, 3 board members were scheduled to participate in the WASDA onboard introduction to the commitment to educational equity training. WASDA has canceled this meeting due to low enrollment. So directors, if you are registered, please contact Darlene and she'll schedule a remote training session or alternative date. On March 21st, at that March 21st work study session, the board will participate in the Strategic Progress Monitoring Sessions number 3. Regular meeting for March 28th, 2023 will contain the following: recognition of the NAACP Martin Luther King Essay Award winners, the iReady Diagnostic Winter Results, a communication plan update, budget development update, the Lowell and View Ridge Elementary School Boundary Adjustment presentation, board travel, the Cascade School Building 2 bid award, and several policy revisions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salzman. We'll now come to section 16.0. Tonight, we have a closed session. It's planned for the purpose of receiving information on upcoming collective bargaining processes and negotiations. We will adjourn this section of the Board of Directors meeting and recess for 5 minutes, and then reconvene in a closed meeting in the Silver Lake Room. We will now stand adjourned.